Hello out there everyone, my name is Chris, also known as CV, and welcome to my channel. Now when I was 11, in the 6th grade, my classmates and I attended a school function called an assembly. Except as 6th graders, anytime we had an assembly, we interpreted that as an extra recess, as it was usually the chance to congregate with our best friends in the school auditorium where the assemblies were held, while we giggled and goofed around about whatever, quote, serious topic the school had chosen for us to learn or pretend to vomit over. School lunches and the food pyramid, how to avoid stranger danger, the history of Thanksgiving and Christmas concerts, student government debates, and usually about school lunches. You get the idea. And during this one fine assembly, the topic for discussion was our changing bodies and, well, the birds and the bees. There's how that was referred to, well, for quite some time, or about the talk about, well, sex. And yes, it's kind of an antiquated term, but anyhow, it's the birds and the bees nonetheless. This, of course, is the king of all topics for kids to point and laugh at uncontrollably, which is exactly what happened when the school faculty passed out pamphlets with explicit cartoon drawings of how boys and girls physically develop, and which use terms that make most people cringe: erection, vulva, intercourse, ejaculate. Yes, all the words that even make adults laugh and cringe as well to this day. Keeping in mind that I was in 6th grade at the time, I was just starting to notice girls. I no longer believed they had cooties, if anybody remembers that word out there. Puberty was quickly taking its hold on me, and all while I had almost no understanding about sex. In fact, the little exposure I did have to it, which amounted to one of my friends stealing a magazine from his sexually adventurous parents' porn collection, and then during a quite memorable recess, quickly flashing pics of couples playing around with each other's genitals, it made me turn green and queasy. How could anyone want to do that with each other? Again, I was in 6th grade. Now, with pamphlet in hand, after having had received the elementary school take on the world of sex, I didn't know whether to feel ashamed about what I had learned, whether I should tell my parents about my school holding that type of assembly in the first place, or just hope that my parents hadn't done that same thing, the deed, in order to create me. That made me even queasier. I decided to take that brave step forward and show my parents the pamphlet when I arrived home from school. Judging from the look my parents gave me, they appeared just as queasy as I was about the topic at hand. However, instead of brushing it away, my father came into my room after dinner, and we had the more official talk on the, well, birds and the bees. Which brings this whole story to what my father emphasized repeatedly throughout his talk with me. That is, when a man and woman truly fall in love with each other, and after they are married in the Catholic Church, the two become one under God, and because marriage is a sacrament, it is first and foremost about building a lasting sacred relationship with each other under the eyes of God. To express their union, and for the primary purpose of creating a family, the man and woman have sex, and while sex can be an amazing experience, it should always be about the love between a man and a woman and building a family together. And again, my father emphasized that a few times during that talk. Now imagine giving that same talk today to kids in our current day and age. The talk my father gave me, now 37 years ago, turned into an ironically apocalyptic sign, that is, an opposite worldview that would eventually shove away sexual morality and lead us to today, a now heavily secular society filled with broken families, broken thinking, and broken souls. Why? Here is one glaring reason, and probably the most significant one. We have replaced the real meaning of sex with a hookup culture that expects sexual compatibility and experiences to be a must-have for a relationship to work. This doesn't mean it is wrong to enjoy sex. Sure, sex can feel mind-blowingly pleasurable with a partner who wants to make the best of the experience with you. However, as I once heard Alice Cooper, yes, the Alice Cooper, who was not only a, well, rock star, but also a devout Christian, what he says about hyper focusing on sexual experiences, and that was including in the music industry too. Is it really worth potentially turning your whole life upside down, or ripping your family apart, or hurting any future chances at a healthy relationship just for an orgasm? Think about it. Should our whole existence, our main purpose in life, be based on how much attention our genitals get? Isn't this why there are so many sexual perversions in the first place? Because we can't imagine life without making our genitals a priority in it? And is it really possible to say there is no correlation between this and the destruction of the nuclear family, the exponential divorce rate, and the mass number of people who have become even more jaded because of epidemically perverse behaviors across dating apps? Christopher West, on his YouTube channel called The Theology of the Body, takes on this topic with sheer boldness. He does not shy away from calling out the widespread problems with human sexuality in our society. Specifically, and as he covers in my recommended video and reading for this week, West shows that sexual vices in our culture have become so normalized, and which are now compounded with gender identity, politics, intersectional feminism, and watered-down understandings of morals and values, we've effectively stripped away much of the value that makes the nuclear family crucially necessary for a healthy society. And by drawing on the must-read essay linked below, and also linked in the recommended video, West quotes key points from the essay by Edward Feser, a professor of philosophy in Pasadena, California. I've added a few of my own takeaways to this list. And starting with first, and these are all direct quotes from the essay. First one: the fundamental way in which we are social animals is by being familial animals. And sex, both in the sense of there being two sexes and in the sense of the sexual act, exists for the purpose of creating families. Another quote: if we did not reproduce in a way that required fathers and mothers, there would be no males and no females. Hence, there would be no sex organs, no sexual arousal, and no sexual act, right? Which moves on to the next point. The making of a new rational social animal is not completed with birth, but only when the children have matured to the point that they are capable of leaving home and beginning families of their own. To have sex is to carry out an action that has all of that as its teleology, just as for a beaver to gnaw a tree at a tree is to carry out an action that has the sheltering of the beaver's family as its teleology. And in both cases, the larger teleological context determines what counts as healthy or dysfunctional. Sidebar, as you will read in the essay, Feser uses other parallels to beavers, which may sound strange at first, but it'll make even more sense when you read the entire essay, trust me, on this one. Next point. The pleasure of sex has its own teleology, just as the pleasure of gnawing trees or eating nuts and the like does. In both cases, the end or point of the pleasure is to draw the animal toward carrying out an action with which the pleasure is associated. But here, too, it is the whole teleological picture that must be kept into view, not just the sexual act considered in isolation. Case in point, sidebar for me here now. I love chocolate protein shakes. And because I love chocolate, I get the added benefit of enjoying it while drinking the protein shake. Yet ultimately, I am drinking the protein shake to build up my health and overall well-being, not just so I can have as much chocolate as I want. If I become hyper-focused on chocolate, regardless of what is included with it, then I'm only serving the pleasure and not the greater purpose of taking care of my health. Now, going back to the essay, another point from it. Repeated indulgence in and rationalization of fornication dulls the intellect's capacity to see the natural end of sex and the will's capacity to pursue it, making sexual pleasure an end in itself rather than a facilitator of a larger purpose. Here's another point. One effect of fornication has been widespread fatherlessness, which has trapped millions of children in poverty, drug addiction, gang activity, and other criminality. Another effect has been widespread denial of this reality. To be sure, academic social scientists and political commentators occasionally acknowledge the ill effects of fatherlessness, but very few are willing to draw the conclusion that the sexual revolution was a mistake and that the social stigmas it swept away ought to be restored. The tendency is to blame the resulting pathologies on other things, like racism, government spending, and so on, when the true cause is staring them in the face. A few more bullets from this essay. The mainstreaming of fornication as a way of life has also harmed women and even men, having made themselves sexually available throughout their fertile years, but also practicing contraception and abortion. Large numbers of women find themselves without husbands, childless, and lonely when those years are past. Large numbers of men have become aimless and prone to risky behavior without the purpose and discipline that the role of the husband and father provides. Another point, the influence of feminism has massively eroded the once common sense understandings that women are by nature directed toward a maternal wifely role and men are by nature directed toward a paternal husbandly role. Transgenderism has eroded this understanding even further and has popularized the idea that sex roles are entirely conventional, fluid, and optional. And a final point from this essay, as habituated and rationalized sexual vice becomes widespread, it inevitably takes a toll on the stability of the family, as individuals no longer see it as the end for which sexual desire exists. Instead of seeking to restrain and reform disordered sexual desire in a way that will be conducive to strengthening the institution of the family, they seek to alter the institution of the family in a way that will be conducive to indulging whatever disordered sexual desires they happen to have. Now, West discusses this last key bullet in the recommended video, and this point encapsulates the entire issue at hand. And this leads back to my earlier question. Should our whole existence, our main purpose in life, be based on how much attention our genitals get? We are seeing the result of that in real time. Are we ready to restore the true meaning of sex? Are we ready to restore the nuclear family? Do we understand if we continue on this path of just sexual vices, that Western society will completely collapse? Now, I appreciate you watching this video today. As I mentioned earlier, the link to the recommended video is below, and also that essay, which is called The Politics of Chastity, Politics of Chastity by Edward Feser. Highly, highly recommend reading it. As always, feel free to leave comments on the channel here. Would love for you to participate in the conversation here. And as always, you're always welcome to email me at trcatholic@gmail.com. Again, that's trcatholic@gmail.com. And until the next video, please stay safe out there and God bless.